We are going to be speaking today about how life is like walking in the mud. That's what it feels like, at least. So, what is going on with America today? We are all feeling this, right? And it feels like walking in the mud. That's what it feels like. Things that we were promised growing up just don't line up with our reality currently. Effort, working your butt off, doesn't turn into stability anymore. Life feels like walking in the mud. That's what it feels like, right? And so, why don't we see our hard work lining up with what we were told? If you work hard, you get ahead. Why not? That's why we put the me's in the chat. Because we were all told the same thing, right? If you were told to work hard, and put your head down, and that would give you some stability, that would give you some breathing room, drop a me in the chat for me. Because I'm pretty sure we were all told the same thing. And we're all doing that. And it doesn't seem to be working out, right? You work hard, you do what you're told, keep your head down, they said. A company wants to see that you can show up, bust your ass for a couple years. So that's what we do. And we think eventually we'll have some breathing room. Breathing room, not luxury. I'm talking about just stability, because humans need stability to live. Because somehow we work our butts off and it still gets harder. But we just want stability, and they make us feel bad for wanting stability. That's because America has one rite of passage, right? We don't talk about it much, but we really do have a rite of passage if we think about it. That's making your own way. And when all of us feel like we're unable to make our own way, when we feel like we're unable to make that rite of passage, provide for yourself, food, housing, and healthcare. I can do it. I don't have to depend on my parents. We feel bad about it, right? Like it's our fault. It's crazy. And we're all exhausted. We're all behind. We know people that are in the same position. But then you say this to some people and they're like, no, that's not how it is. That's weird, right? Because it's a lot of people feeling this way. And it's this deep stress too. And you're just like, what? This isn't a handful of people. It's all of us that are working harder than ever and still falling farther behind. And it's the pressure that we all feel. Because that's what's crazy. When you're busting your ass and you still can't make ends meet, you feel that pressure, that stress. And I think that's a lot of why America feels so divided and divisive today, because we're all stressed. Because we've all had that same job where you work your ass off for how many years, you ask for a raise, you've seen the profits go up and up, you've seen the new cars that the boss has pulled it in. But then when you ask for a raise, they say there's not enough, right? And then that's because, I mean, we're always 1 month away, right? We're 1 month. We're 1 month away. So let's go back and ask a question. Why is an effort the deciding factor, right? Because it sure seems like who you're born to and where you're born and what you have access to is actually the deciding factor in whether or not you are successful. Because that's really what determines success in today's America. Your damn zip code matters more than your work ethic. What you're born into is what matters. Because whether you're born to the factory owner or the factory employee depends on whether you get a good education or not. And we're just simply rewarding the wrong thing in our society. We're not rewarding effort. We're not rewarding discipline. We're rewarding who you were born to and your starting position, right? That's really, I guess, what it is. Your starting position really determines your ending position. But again, like the only rite of passage in America, the only thing that all of us share is you make your own way. You make your own way, right? And now we've got entire generations screwed over and they aren't talking about it because they're ashamed of not making their own way. So why doesn't 40 hours a week? Why doesn't 40 hours a week cover the basics anymore? Not luxury, the basics. Why do corporations seem like they hate us? That's a big one. Why do corporations seem like they hate us? You're working there for 5 years, 10 years, you still can't get ahead. We go buy the things from the corporations. Not the employee's fault, but we don't get treated well. And everybody's got to look at their bank accounts before you go to the grocery store. And it's not normal, right? It's just not normal. We were told that it's normal. Oh, this is life. This is adulthood. No, we're getting screwed over because this didn't happen in the previous generations. There were always people that had to choose between their doctor and the electric bill. But not everybody, right? Previous generations didn't have to go through this. And what's crazy, when you bring this up, people deny it. People get upset. People get frustrated. Previous generations didn't have to go through this. Corporations used to take care of the people that worked their butt off because essentially, if you worked for a successful company, you were successful too. But that's not the case anymore. But people deny that. I could pull up the productivity and salary graphs, but people will still deny it because it's what you feel, right? And as long as some people feel like it's still working out for them and they just worked harder, right? And they get to point fingers. I'm just so tired of pointing fingers. Tabitha, good to see you. That's what it is. I'm just so tired of pointing fingers. What's happened has happened over the last 30 and 40 years, has taken many, many cookies to crumble, you could say. Yet we point one finger at it. No, greed is the disease. Greed is the disease. The culture of money first over everything else is causing all the problems, not because corporations are evil, because corporations are incentivized to screw us over. Alex, good to see you too. Corporations are incentivized to screw us over. They don't care because they know that they will still make their money, get their profits, that they have all the power, right? That's what it comes down to. They have all the power. Because it comes down to this, 1% of people have as much as 90% of us. 1% of people have as much as 90% of us. And we're the ones doing the hard work to make them rich. We're the ones working 40 and 50 hours a week. They just take as much money as all 10 or all 100 of their employees. Because if you think of the American economy as 10 people making 10 slices of bread, or maybe it works better. Maybe I'm going to do 1,000. As 1,000 people making 1,000 slices of bread, well, then just 100 people at the top would take 500 slices of bread. So we got 900 people fighting over 500 slices of bread. Even though they helped make all that bread too. That's what's crazy. And then we're working 40 and 50 hours a week just to cover our rent, just to cover our healthcare, just to buy groceries. And when do we really have the time to think about how bad they are screwing us over? Especially when we all feel the pressure. And because we feel the pressure, we're looking for who's causing this, who is taking all of the bread. We're doing the work, but there's not as much as there should be for all of us not to be rich, to have stability, food, housing, healthcare. And the same people that are taking more than their fair share are using the media to point fingers anywhere except for them. Right? And it's almost like we're all treading water. That's what life feels like. It feels like we're treading water. We just have to focus on next month's rent. Every single time it refills and the pool gets a little bit higher. But think about when you're treading water, you don't have perspective, do you? You don't have perspective. So you don't see the actual situation that, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. These people on the side are pouring in the water, right? And then they make us feel like it's our fault. So we stay silent about it because they make us feel like there's 1,000 different problems. And then because it feels like there's 1,000 different problems, because we're experiencing the symptoms. We look at the symptoms and think they're the cause. And so that's where, no matter where you go, you're told the same thing, right? Just do well in school, work your ass off, and you'll get rewarded. But somehow the rewards never came. And then we assume we missed a step, right? We assume you did something wrong. But you can't even stop treading water to figure out what's going on. We saw our parents do the same thing and they got ahead. But now we're not, right? Everybody thinks they're the outlier. That's what it is. Everyone assumes someone else figured something out to show everybody who is sitting there quietly, right? Isolation is what keeps this in place. We stay quiet about it. And then what else is it? People say, oh, it's the individual's fault, right? Somebody must have made bad choices. But that's fine. You just don't see the whole picture yet. You're still sitting there treading. So people, they want to make us lose over and over again, because then we don't realize that the game is rigged. We're all at a carnival game. Because here's what I like to ask people. If it's the individual's fault, how many people would have to fail before you decided it was not the individual's fault? Because right now we have 80% of Americans without any savings. 80%. 208 million people don't have enough. And because they don't have enough savings, they're barely treading water. Now, at what point does it need to get that it's not those 80% of people's problem? When it's 90% of people? Because we're coming towards that. When it's 95% of people, are we still just going to be saying that's reality? This is life. Because that's not the way it used to be. It used to be that 80 or 85% of people were able to cruise through. You were able to work 40 hours a week, and that 40 hours a week covered your food, housing, and healthcare. And that food, housing, and healthcare was only about 20%, 30% of your income. You had $3,000, $4,000 a month left over. At the end of the year, you had 20, 30 grand in savings. And that gave you some security. You know what it really gave people was the ability to tell their boss to shove it. It's the ability to say no, right? Because the strongest thing that we forget about is our freedom of choice. And we think our freedom of choice is in the market saying, oh, look at this product. Oh, look at that product. Our freedom of choice is our ability to say no. Hey, you've been working 10 days straight. I need you to come in again tomorrow. Well, if you have to have your job in order to make your rent the next month, and the boss says, come in or you're fired, you can't say no. Here's the other thing I like to ask people. Could you quit tomorrow? Could you quit your job tomorrow? Do you have enough savings? It doesn't matter if it's a good job or a bad job. And if it is a bad job, if you don't have enough savings to even say no, how free are you? Right? If you can't say no, how free are you? And the flip side of things, if you go into the grocery store and you can only afford rice and beans, how free do you feel? Because your rent and your housing and your healthcare is taking up all your paycheck. That's the issue. And we have to understand that when we're playing this rigged carnival game, right? How many people do we have to see come through that fail? And then finally we're like, hey, what's going on here? We did everything right. And they're like, well, I did everything right too. Well, I did everything right too. Well, I did everything right too. So that's how we get to working 40 hours a week for 40 years, because the game is rigged by default. Some people are given the secret instructions, and the secret instructions is usually having enough security to be able to try over and over again, to move somewhere else, to be able to get a new job, get a new skill, take chances. But for the majority of us, they figured out that if they don't have the security to take chances, that they can control us. Because where we really lost it was having the free market, right? Over 85% of corporations on the S&P 500 have the same 3 top shareholders. So we don't have any ability as a consumer to say no. We can't walk out the door. So that's why these corporations don't pay higher salaries, because they know their customers can't walk out and go to the local general store down the road, because they ran that local general store out of business. They ran the local grocery store out of business. And then even though we're stuck because of lack of choices, we're just surviving. What do they say, right? You made the wrong choices. You did something wrong, right? Even though all it really is some people did a little bit better, some people did a little bit worse. And that's where the average salary is close to the average cost of living. And that's why life feels like walking in the mud. So drop a me in the chat if life feels like walking in the mud. Every single month, the system resets. You have to go ahead. It's like you got to do this, do this, do that. You have 1 minute of breathing room, and then all over again, the other bill comes on in. Back to the grind. It's so crazy. You have no time during the week. So how do we actually come together to fix it and think about it if the majority of people are stuck in either there's no problem or the problem are individuals' fault? That's what we really have to figure out. Because what's been happening is the roadmap has worked for the majority of people for the majority of our country's time. But then when the road stops working for 70, 80% of the people, we stop blaming the driver, right? At some point, you have to say, what's going on with the road? The lanes are getting narrower. Only certain models of cars are allowed through. And the people that are on the side of the road that I used to think that they were on the side of the road because it was their fault, I'm starting to see that, shoot, maybe this road doesn't work for everybody. Because if you're falling behind, where you start from on that road really matters more than your work ethic, matters more than anything else. That's what is so crazy about America today. All right, y'all, I'm going to hop on down and hop back up in just a minute. Actually, we'll keep going.